Hi everyone, welcome back to my series, The Decades of Action Challenge, which was inspired by the Epic Film Challenge that's being run right now by Forkerball and Razorwire Reviews on their channels. They are going through the book 1001 Movies You Must See Before You Die, and watching the various entries there and making videos about what they think of them. I am calling from a different source. It's Tom Breihan's series called A History of Violence on avclub.com. It is about the most important action movie, the most influential action movie of each year, starting with 1968, Bullet, directed by Stephen Yates, starring Steve McQueen, and moving forward to the present day. I am on 1985, and Breihan's pick for this was Rambo: First Blood Part 2. Not a surprising choice, really. Though he was wavering between that and Commando, and so was I. I was sort of wondering, out of those two movies, which one would he pick? I figured Rambo was the more iconic character, seeing as how there has been 4 Rambo movies and only one movie with John Matrix starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. So I'd seen this movie before, a few years ago. I'm on this collab channel called the Movie Reviewers 100. We decided to do an 80s theme week, and I thought, what could be more 80s than Rambo? Let me, I had only seen one Rambo movie up to that point, and that was the third one. I saw it many years ago when I was a teenager. It was on cable. I watched it. I don't remember a whole lot about it, other than the fact that he basically cauterizes his own gunshot wound by pouring gunpowder into this hole in his side and then lighting it on fire. That's about all I remember from the movie. All I remember was Sylvester Stallone plays this very muscle-bound veteran who's skilled in combat and weapons, and he just basically is a one-man army. And I hadn't seen 2 until that particular theme week a few years ago, and made a video about it, and then only just a few weeks ago did I finally see the very first Rambo movie, First Blood. Again, Sylvester Stallone plays the character of John Rambo, who is a former Green Beret, and we get a little rundown of what he's done and the accomplishments that he's had in Vietnam. It was 59 confirmed kills and a huge number of medals. So he is recruited basically to go on this reconnaissance mission in Vietnam to find out if there is a camp with American prisoners of war, bring back photographic evidence of that so they can send in an extraction team, but they want to make sure that they're actually there first before they send more people in. A one-man operation, and John Rambo is picked to do it. We first see him in a rock quarry. He is, as part of his 8-year prison sentence for causing all that havoc in that small town in Washington in the previous movie, he's chipping away at a rock quarry. Seems very much at home there, actually. He says, at least here I know where I stand. Don't have to deal with a whole bunch of people lying to me, or people who just want to mess with me just because I don't look the right way. It's funny, I replayed actually that scene once because, as I was watching it this morning, because the TriStar Picture logo in the beginning normally has music underneath it, but it's completely silent. And the very first thing that happens is, as soon as you cut to an image, boom, there's this big explosion as the rock quarry is part of it's detonated, and there's just, dust and debris everywhere. And then we sort of tilt down and we see a whole bunch of guys chipping away and using jackhammers at the rock. And Rambo is one of them. I thought that was, perfect way to open a movie like this. Don't even, just an explosion. Just start with an explosion. Yeah, works just fine. And then Richard Crenna, who was Colonel Troutman in the first movie, he visits the camp, and he speaks with Rambo about taking on this mission, and, if you make it back and accomplish everything, there could be a presidential pardon in your future. You won't have to, be here anymore. And as they're actually walking towards each other, before they speak, there's actually a huge dump truck that passes by in the background. So the scale of the thing is just so much bigger than the first one. So, of course, Rambo agrees to take on the mission, and they give him the parameters, and they give him some equipment, and they drop him in. But then he finds out not only are there prisoners of war here, but when he tries to make it back with one of them, they're not all in the cage. It's like, well, this one guy's being strung up basically like on a big piece of wood, and I'm going to get this guy down, and I'm going to get out of here with them. But when the helicopter comes to extract him, they don't want him to come back with prisoners of war, which is what we find out. That's if he comes back with evidence of prisoners of war, let alone a prisoner of war himself, it's going to cost the country a huge amount of money to stage another invasion to get these guys out, and they want to avoid that. The guy in charge of the operation, his name is Murdoch. He's played by Charles Napier, who is a veteran of many Jonathan Demme's films, the late Jonathan Demme. Played everything from a prison guard in Silence of the Lambs to a judge in Philadelphia and lots of other bit parts. So he's well known to me. So is Richard Crenna. Another guy who's part of the operation, a helicopter pilot, his name is Erickson. He's played by Martin Kove. Let me see if you recognize this line. A man confronts you, he is your enemy. An enemy deserves no mercy. What is the problem, Mr. Lawrence? He's the leader of the Cobra Kai dojo in The Karate Kid. So he's in this as well. And Stephen Berkoff turns up as a Russian soldier. Not only is Rambo having to deal with Vietnam bad guys, the Viet Cong, holding these American prisoners of war, but guess what? They're working with the Russians, who of course are the villain du jour for any American action movie, right? Yeah, no, couldn't let it just be the Vietnamese. It had to be the Russians as well. The leader of the Russian bad guys is played by Stephen Berkoff. He plays a guy named Pavlovsky, right? He's been in a lot of stuff. He was in The Clockwork Orange, Kubrick movie. Sorry, that's A Clockwork Orange. As a cop, he was in Barry Lyndon, another Kubrick movie. He was in the Bond movie Octopussy. He played the head of the bad guys in Beverly Hills Cop, the first Beverly Hills Cop movie with Eddie Murphy. He was in a really, really stupid action movie in the 90s called Fair Game with William Baldwin and Cindy Crawford, the supermodel Cindy Crawford. I think it's one of the only times she's ever tried acting in anything. And he was also in The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. He played a lawyer in Sweden, David Fincher's Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. So he's been in a bunch of stuff. I'm surprised I didn't, recognize him. I mean, he looked really familiar, but I had to sort of look up his resume. I also should mention that Rambo has an ally, basically, when he gets dropped in. There's a Vietnam, or perhaps Taiwanese agent, soldier, a young woman whose name is Ko Bao. She's played by an actress named Julia Nickson. Wasn't in much. The two most noteworthy things that she's been in is with Chuck Norris in Sidekicks, and in the video game adaptation Double Dragon with Scott Wolf and Robert Patrick and Alyssa Milano, which I've never seen, but I hear it's gloriously cheesy. She is someone who has been, fighting in one way or another for most of her life. And she's like saying, maybe when this is over, I'll go to America and live the quiet life. And she asks Rambo, when he's betrayed by his own people, when the helicopter pilot comes and then takes off without picking them up, she's just like, what are you going to do now? Where are you going to go? He says, I'll make it to Thailand, and from there I'll make my way back to America. And she says, will you please bring me with you? And he says, absolutely. And when I first saw this movie, I'm like, that's not going to happen. He's got more people to kill, right? She's got to die. She's going to get killed, and he's going to go on without her and slaughter all these guys. And sure enough, after he says, yes, I'll take you to America, she gets killed like 10 seconds later. I mean, it's just, I'm like, okay, great. Now we're going to do the one-man army thing. And the movie is true to its reputation. He straps on all his weapons, gets the arrows with the explosive tips, and he goes back and he takes them out one by one, and then he commandeers a helicopter and blows up the entire base and rescues all the POWs. I'm sorry, am I giving away the ending for you? This is a Rambo movie, okay? Yeah, I mean, this is the Rambo movie. I mean, there have been other Rambo movies, but this is the one that everyone goes, this is, what we mean by a Rambo movie. He walks in, he kills everybody, he saves all the innocent people, or as many as he can, he takes out a attack helicopter by pretending to be dead. It's like the helicopter's chasing after him, firing at him. The helicopter's hit. It's smoking. Then there's so much smoke that the pursuer, the Russian guy, can't even see where he's gone. And when he rounds the corner and he sees in the middle of this lake the helicopter's just sitting there, it's like, oh, is he dead? Is he down? And Rambo's kind of slumped over the seat like this. I'm just like, the guy could never see him sitting there from that distance. And then Rambo jumps up, picks up a rocket launcher, kills the last bad guy, and I'm just like, okay. Can someone please tell me why the rocket didn't detonate when it hit the inside of the windshield of the helicopter that Rambo was firing from? It would have blown them all sky high. Yeah, it's quite ridiculous. I looked up on the Wikipedia page, and it said, yeah, critics were not kind to this movie when it first came out. No surprise there. It can be dumb as dirt, but there are some good, moments in it, particularly when the Russians basically put Rambo on a radio and say, now I want you to send a message back to the other Americans and tell them they're not to come in here anymore. And at this point, he's already been left behind by, Murdoch. And so when he grabs the microphone, instead of saying what he wants to say, he says, Murdoch, I'm coming for you. And then he picks up the microphone and starts bashing guys' head in, Don't mess with this guy, The first thing that happens when they give him the mission is just like, you want me to take pictures? I'm supposed to just leave them there if I find them, And I'm just like, don't piss this guy off, please, You've seen his sheet, for crying out loud. You know what he's capable of. Do not piss him off. So, I don't really like this movie all that much. But, there's some pleasure to be taken, of course, in seeing a whole bunch of stuff get blown up. And the movie certainly does deliver on that promise. When he commandeers the helicopter especially, he goes back to that prisoner of war camp and he blows up every single building that does not have Americans in it. And then he shoots everybody down, uses the explosive arrows. He does that whole thing like he did in the first movie where he hides in places and just pops out and grabs one guy at a time and kills them silently. How he can predict exactly where they'll stop or where they will walk past is a mystery. The director of this movie is George Cosmatos, and I saw another one of a few of his other movies. I did a 1973 series a few years back. I watched his movie Massacre in Rome. I thought it was very good. He did a movie years ago in the 80s called Of Unknown Origin. This came out in 83. The reason why I watched this movie is because Peter Weller was in it, and I was watching every single Peter Weller movie I could find because I loved RoboCop so much. He's dealing with a rat. A rat that's infested his apartment. He ends up basically tearing the entire apartment apart just to kill this one rat. After he did Rambo, he worked with Stallone again in Cobra, which he played sort of a Dirty Harry type cop. And basically there's like a whole cadre of serial killers. For some reason, there's like an organization of serial killers. That really doesn't happen in real life, I don't think. He worked with Peter Weller again in Leviathan, which is an undersea horror movie. He did Tombstone, the Western, very well liked Western Tombstone, though not well liked by me exactly. With Kurt Russell as as Wyatt Earp and Val Kilmer as Doc Holliday. If nothing else, Tombstone gave us a great Val Kilmer performance as Doc Holliday. His last movie, according to Wikipedia, was shot in just 19 days. What? That's ridiculous. It's called Shadow Conspiracy. It's a political thriller in D.C. with Charlie Sheen and Linda Hamilton and I think Donald Sutherland as well. Yeah. That came out in 97. That was his last movie. He died in April of 2005. Not a director that I love. I've seen some of his movies and liked few of them, unfortunately. So that's sad. That is Rambo First Blood Part 2. That is the second Rambo movie. And he would make another one in 88, and then about, I guess, 20 years after that would make a movie that's simply called Rambo, which had the CGI capable to allow his victims to have holes blown clear through their chest with a giant machine gun, which was an exhilarating scene, I'd say. The next one from 86, the next movie I'll be doing in Breihan series is 1986, and that is, not strictly speaking, an action movie. It definitely has a lot of action, but technically it's science fiction, so I missed guessing this one. It is Aliens, directed by James Cameron, the sequel to Ridley Scott's Alien, it's a terrific movie, and I'm looking forward to watching it again. I managed to find for like $9 the special extended edition. So fantastic. I own a very inexpensive but great copy of that movie. So that'll be next week. Thank you very much for watching my video. If you want to read all about Breihan's reaction and his thoughts on Rambo First Blood Part 2, the link to that article on avclub.com is below, in addition to my Facebook page and the playlist where you can see all the videos that I've done for this series. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you next time. Later.